Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with another mail call. This is another eBay purchase. It's from All Winners Comics. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I have over 40 years experience collecting comics, and what I do here on the channel is comic book conservation and unboxings and market reports. And obviously today is a market report unboxing. This is one that should be a lot of fun. These books are relatively affordable. There's two books in here. They were a little bit over $100 each. I've been doing Golden Age unboxings and high-end Silver Age recently, so this is a little bit of a departure from that. And so I won't have to do a bargain alternative book today because these are very affordable books. If you're into funny books, you're going to be pleasantly surprised, maybe shocked at how little I spent on these. So let's see what we're talking about with any further ado here. There we go. So if you enjoy this content, please give us a thumbs up. Tell a friend about the channel. Tell an enemy about the channel. That'd be cool too. Subscribe if you haven't already, please. You'll notice there's a CBCS book. I'm going to flip it this way. Ooh. Check that out. Wow. Guys, I can't tell you how excited I am about these. If you've seen how excited I get about big Golden Age books, that's cool. But you know I'm a real fan because I get pumped even for books like this. These are beautiful. We're going to talk a little bit about CBCS too. Get rid of that glare a little bit. There we go. So what is it and why do we care? Iron Man number 170, CBCS 9.8, off-white to white pages. This is from May of 1983, and it features the first time Rhodey dons the Iron Man armor with this really great Luke McDonnell cover. I just absolutely loved it. I've always loved this book. This came out when I was collecting comics. It was a minor key back then. There was a lot of buzz, obviously. It was the first time anybody other than Tony put the armor on, and being a person of color was a big deal, especially in '83. This issue is written by Denny O'Neil, who obviously is no stranger to groundbreaking and culturally relevant stories for comic books in the 70s and into the 80s. So what happened here is Tony Stark is literally passed out drunk, and Stark International is under attack by Magma. Not the New Mutant Magma, but this Joker, the much less sexy Magma. And Rhodey suits up to defend Stark International and Tony from certain death by Magma. After the battle, Stark decides he'd rather hang out as a drunk playboy than be a hero, and he tells Rhodey that he should keep the suit. Rhodey responds, "But you're Iron Man," and Tony replies back to him, "Anybody who wears the armor is Iron Man." And for the better part of the next 3 years, Rhodey is Iron Man. So when I first started collecting comics, obviously it was Tony, but very soon after that, you know, for the 3 of the first 5 years I was reading comics, Rhodey was Iron Man. Of note, this is the newsstand edition. This book here is one of my 2 favorite James Rhodes or War Machine speculation books. This book is my other favorite. Avengers West Coast number 94. This is in CBCS 9.8, white pages, and it's from May 1993, so 1 decade later. This one's written by Roy Thomas, it's penciled by David Ross, and it's the first appearance of James Rhodes as War Machine. After Tony sobered up and took the Iron Man mantle back again, for a few years, Rhodey goes back to being his pilot and his confidant. When Tony develops a suit that will eventually become called War Machine and returns to his Iron Man suit, Rhodey takes over that armor, wears it for a few issues, and then he's declared War Machine for the first time in this issue here. Armor Wars is coming to the MCU, and we don't know much about it yet other than for sure it stars Don Cheadle as War Machine. It's probably a good bet that it's based on the original storyline by David Micheline and Bob Layton from Iron Man number 225 to 232. When it was originally published, this story was actually called Stark Wars, but has since become known as Armor Wars and it's collected in trade paperback and is considered to be one of the greatest Iron Man stories ever told. There are several other stories that go by the Armor Wars title, including an Armor Wars 2, several limited series, but none of them are nearly as compelling as the original story, or none of them really make any sense for James Rhodes to headline. So my money is on the MCU movie plot being developed from the original Stark Wars storyline. In the original story, Tony discovers that some of his tech that he uses to make the armor so powerful has been stolen and sold to Justin Hammer, who in turn sells it to several other villains, some of whom kill with the tech. When Tony finds this out, he feels personally responsible for the deaths, and it's really emotionally agonizing for him. So after some soul searching, he decides not only that he must recover all of his stolen tech, but that he must remove his tech from all places where it's being used in the Marvel 616, including good guys that he had provided the tech to. His rationale was, even though they were using it responsibly, if it was stolen from him, it could be stolen from them in the future. And if it was stolen from them, it could end up again in the hands of bad guys who would use it to kill innocent people. His decision to pull in all versions of his armor from everywhere on Earth, no matter how they were originated, puts him in conflict with the good guys in several cases. And in fact, he has to battle Captain America. And it ultimately costs him his Avengers membership as well. The reason why this story is considered one of the greatest Iron Man stories ever told is that it tests Tony's character, similar to the Demon in a Bottle storyline. And it's through these tests that our characters become real and become heroic. And that's why it's such a great story. So I'm confident that'll be the story. We know that it's Don Cheadle. With Tony being gone from the MCU, the obvious adaptation of the story for Armor Wars would be that the Iron Man tech gets out. Justin Hammer is already in the MCU, so it makes sense that he'd be the one to acquire it, just as he did in the source material. Whether directly or through some intermediary as he did in the Stark Wars, it was actually Spymaster who he paid to steal it. And that Rhodey would be honor-bound to round up all of the copies of Tony's armor to make sure Tony's legacy isn't tarnished by his tech being used by villains. Because so little is known about the upcoming MCU project, the only sure thing to speculate on seems to be James Rhodes and/or War Machine, which is his MCU character. There are a few key books to consider. Iron Man number 118 is the first appearance of James Rhodes. And I like this book and I own it, but frankly I'm just lukewarm on it. He's really only in one panel, and backgrounds in two others, has only one spoken line, and he's obviously not on the cover. It's a fine book, but I just don't see a lot of upside potential for it. In contrast, this book, Iron Man number 170, features him on the cover and in the act of donning the Iron Man armor for the first time. It's his first appearance as Iron Man, and the first appearance of anyone other than Tony as Iron Man, with a great cover and lots of upside potential, especially if Rhodey dons the classic red and gold armor at any point during Armor Wars, which I think has a fair chance of occurring. Those are the two James Rhodes keys. When it comes to War Machine keys, you also have two main books. There's Iron Man number 282, which is a great cover, but it has a few problems with respect to speculation. The biggest one is that it's not actually Rhodey in the armor, it's Tony. And the cover blurb notwithstanding, Tony or no one in the book calls the armor the War Machine. It's not even the first appearance of the armor, which actually appears first in the previous issue, Iron Man number 281, but rather just the first cover appearance. Despite these shortcomings, it is a great cover, and it's the front runner for most valuable War Machine book based on the cover alone. But I think the better long-term prospect is this book, Avengers West Coast number 94. In this book, Rhodey adopts the armor and is named War Machine, and he remains War Machine from this point forward in the Marvel 616 continuity. I'm bullish on the Armor Wars project being a big hit. It has so much potential great source material to pull from, and an established MCU character with a very strong actor. It also probably or almost certainly ties in with Ironheart, and I think these two books are the best opportunities with what we know right now about the project. So let's talk fair market value. Iron Man number 170 is not a rare book. Neither of these are. There were approximately 375,000 copies of Iron Man number 170 printed, and there are just over 600 universal copies in the CGC census, with a median grade of 9.6. Regular viewers of the channel know that I like to hunt rare and unique variants of a key book to curate a collection that will be the envy of other collectors. For this book, you have a few choices. First up, you have Mark Jewelers, of course, and there's also a Canadian price variant. There are only 13 CPVs in the CGC census. You could also perhaps find an error printing, like a double cover or something like that. Lastly, you have the book that I've acquired, a newsstand edition in 9.8. CGC changed everything in September of this year when they announced that going forward they would be indicating newsstand copies of comics and tracking them separately in the census. The market has already recognized for some time that newsstand variants can be exceedingly rare, especially in high grade. If you were around in those days, you can attest by witness the way comics were displayed in spinner racks makes the survival of a comic in 9.8 nothing short of astonishing. My brother and I were regular spine tick creators while racing through the spinner racks, trying to be the first to find each month's issue of X-Men. In 1983, comic books were distributed about 50-50 newsstand and direct market. So the newsstand is no rarer than the direct in mid-grade. But in high grade, there's a huge difference. Go Collect notes only 13 sales in the last year of newsstand 9/8, in contrast to 86 sales of the direct market edition in 9/8. That's fewer than 1 in 6 of the total 9/8 being newsstands. At the moment, CGC has 0 newsstands in the census. Over time, of course, we'll see the distribution of newsstands to direct show up in the census. But also with enough data, we'll see the median grade of newsstands emerge, which I'm sure will be much lower than for the direct market copies. Fair market value for a newsstand Iron Man number 170 has held a little over $300 thanks to how infrequently they change hands. The record high was just under $400 over a year ago. Incidentally, the record for a direct edition was over $450, and I think long-term the 9.8 newsstand can eclipse that number easily. That's why I was so ecstatic to be the winning bidder of this beauty for only $123.50. I already own a few raw copies of this book, but this is going into my PC as a long-term hold. Avengers West Coast number 94. Anyone else want to throttle John Byrne for renaming West Coast Avengers for no reason and no value right in the middle of the run? Has a much smaller CGC census population than Iron Man number 170. There are only 235 universal copies of this book in the census, with a median grade of 9.6. Fair market value of a 9.8 has fallen to about $280, with several earlier sales of this book just under $500. Now, this book and the first one are both CBCS slabs, which personally I believe is at least as high quality of CGC and probably higher. I think it's more difficult to get a 9.8 from CBCS than it is to get one from CGC. But on average, there is a bit of a discount in the market to CGC slabs. That said, I was the winning bidder on this book for an outrageously low price of only $106. Even better, both of these books came from the same seller, so my shipping was split between the two. These two books are just another example of how the recent downturn in all asset classes due to the FOMC hiking interest rates to control inflation is creating some great buying opportunities in comic books. Do you have Fed Chair Powell on your Christmas card list this year? I do. I'm urging followers of the channel to be patient and take advantage of the current market downturn and volatility to purchase some really fantastic investment-grade comics at great entry points that we haven't seen in years. I hope you enjoyed this video on the key James Rhodes and War Machine comics. At this point, there's very little confirmed for Armor Wars other than his headlining the show, so until we know more, I'm sticking with only investing in his books. And these are my top 2 picks. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. What do you think about Armor Wars or these 2 books? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, happy hunting and take care of one another.